Hey guys, Ponce here on the Public Tester. I'm here to talk to you guys about a new item, Soul Sickle, and a change to an old item, Doran Shield, which I'll talk about after the Soul Sickle. But basically, Soul Sickle is an item which is probably supposed to build into Essence Reaver, but currently doesn't because it's the Public Tester realm and they're just like releasing things in steps. So there's no real reason to build this thing right now because what it is a mini Essence Reaver. You guys can see the stats here, but 20 attack damage, 10 lifesteal, restores 1 to 6% of the damage dealt back as mana, effectiveness increased by missing mana. So essentially, yeah, Essence Reaver, but crappier. Probably what's going to end up happening, it'll be like, Longsword, Vampiric Scepter, and then there'll be an Essence Reaver step here, and then maybe it's supposed to build with BF Sword into the final Essence Reaver thing. Now, this is not unexpected at all. Riot said they were going to release an intermediary step sometime back, so it looks like they're getting to doing that now. I don't know if this is going to actually make anyone build Essence Reaver, because, yeah, basically no one builds that item because it's not very good. It's very not mana efficient. Typically, by the time you've built Essence Reaver, you don't really care about mana sustain anymore. And even working towards mana sustain is always just kind of, it's a drain on your money. So, basically, the more money you're spending on mana sustain means the weaker you are in actual combat. Like when you're actually fighting someone, you are paying for the mana sustain stat as opposed to paying for extra HP or extra damage or stuff like that. So the problem with Essence Reaver specifically is, yeah, by the time you get to that point, you don't care about it, but you're also putting money into going towards that for very little payoff. Now, Soul Sickle may, if it goes in as is, may run into a similar problem because, again, you're building towards mana sustain early, and your all-out combat stats are not going to be quite as good because you're spending 1,400 to try and get mana back. It's a lot like how people don't tend to build boots very early. People want to get, let's say, you can essentially get boots or a longsword. Obviously, there's a slight price difference, but if you're sitting there fighting someone, the guy with the longsword is always going to beat the guy with the boots, unless you're trying to employ some sort of kiting strategy or for whatever reason you need to move faster. But in terms of actual combat stats and fighting and killing someone, longsword tends to work better. So mana sustain is a similar kind of thing. Having extra mana or mana sustain, unless your champion is based off of scaling with mana or whatever, doesn't add to your combat stats. So I don't know. We'll see. Essence Reaver was always in a tricky position. Maybe people will build this now, maybe not. I suspect not, but we'll see. Next we have Doran's Shield. Now, in my opinion, this is probably the more important change because, well, Doran's Shield is an item people actually sometimes buy. So what's happening here is blocks 8 damage from single target attacks and spells from champions. So basically, Doran's Shield will now block 8 spell damage as well. Notice it says single target attacks and spells. The meaning, most likely, like I'm not sure because I haven't tested it, but this Doran's Shield is not going to completely screw over Rumble in lane. You're not going to get Doran's Shield and block all his flamethrower shots for 8 damage and make him deal like negative damage, because Flamethrower is not a single target. But again, to use Rumble as an example, you'd block the harpoon damage 8 times every time by 8 damage every time he hits you.
I will atone.
So this is kind of an interesting change in that Doran's Shield is now probably a viable option against AP top laners, like Ryze deals single target damage, so you block 8 damage off of his Q, stuff like that. You may want to start building Doran's Shield. Well, we're talking about AP champions. Yeah, champions who deal AP damage. Instead of going Crystalline Flask 3-pot, which is a very typical thing if you want to sustain through magic damage, that's what you do. Doran's Shield might be an option, a viable option now. Versus AD casters, typically, or a lot of times what people do, they go Cloth 5 because Doran's Shield, for example, against Pantheon, it wouldn't block Pantheon Spear Throw, right? So, you'd block his auto attack damage, but Pantheon, a lot of his damage came from the spear throw harass. So you get Cloth 5, Cloth Armor, or the armor would negate some of his spear damage, and you have 5 pots to work with. Now Doran's Shield will block 8 of his spear throw. So interesting change. It's quite an interesting buff. I imagine, you'll be building Doran's Shield in a lot more cases now, which is it's a bit sad in that basically they're probably going to get rid of these very niche sort of start picks like Cloth Armor and Crystalline Flasks. So no matter what you're doing in lane, now pretty much always you're going to be building Doran's Shield or Doran's Blade. Although, again, against a Rumble, I guess you could still build Crystalline Flask and, 3 pots. In certain cases, some champions start boots 3, although that's very rare. Um, in any case, I suppose we're completing the era of Dorans. We're making it all dominant. But anyway, that's it for now for this video. That's the new item, Soul Sickle, and the buff to Doran's shield. I probably talked about this for long enough now. I'll see you guys around. I'm going to move on to some other balance changes, which have also happened on the public test realm. So keep your eyes open for that. I'll see you guys around.